Hello and welcome. My name is John Van Etten. I'm the Managing Director of Human Synergistics Office here in Germany, and I'm very happy to be joining you today to talk about one of our instruments, the LSI, the original instrument from Human Synergistics that has recently been updated. And now we are offering the LSI Plus, and very happy to take some time today to talk to you about what's new in the report and show you these helpful updates. So thank you so much for joining. If anyone has any questions during the session, please feel free to add those to the comments. We'll be going through this content with the assumption that you're familiar with the LSI instrument, perhaps accredited in the tool. If you're not familiar with the tool and perhaps are interested in it, please feel free to reach out. Be very happy to help you. The LSI was actually the original instrument developed by Human Synergistics in the early 1970s, originally developed to measure psychological patterns, or what we call thinking styles, and how those patterns influence well-being. Later, the LSI was adapted to include a measurement of behavioral patterns and how those patterns influence performance and well-being criteria. So you can see on the model, the causal model that we have for LSI in terms of thinking, driving behavior, and both of these factors influencing well-being of the individual as well as their ability to perform effectively. So these are diagnostic psychometric instruments. For the purpose of them is for individual development, and they are used very, very widely around the world for organizational leadership development and individual development in organizations in all kinds of settings. So the bottom line here before we move ahead is that obviously the way we think and the way that we behave are tremendously influential, not only for our own well-being, but for also predicting essentially our ability to perform effectively. So we're looking at those patterns that we measure here on this slide, various well-being and performance criteria, and again, the causal relationship between those two things. So if we understand those patterns and how they affect our well-being and performance, then hopefully we can learn from them and moving forward, choose to approach work and interact with others in ways that are more consistently positive and predictive of positive outcomes. And that's essentially the purpose of the LSI in broad strokes. And with that, hopefully we can get into the report. So this is the cover page of the LSI. You can see that it is also mentioning that this is an LSI Plus, including Acumen Insights. So a lot of the additions that you'll see in the LSI Plus report are coming from earlier research and development of another tool called the LWS, or Leadership Work Styles, that you may be familiar with. So what we're looking at here is actually the table of contents from the LSI and LSI report. It is now 58 pages with the new contents, and I just wanted to go through and basically focus on what the new pieces of the report content are. So first of all, the LSI Plus starts with one extra page right at the beginning of the report talking about the purpose of the instrument and the report itself. So this is, I think, fairly straightforward given what the instruments are used for, but I think it's nice that we have a page in the report to talk about the developmental purpose of the tool, as well as the developmental process that the tool is typically a foundation for. So getting clear on why we're using this instrument and how to use the report in the very beginning, I find that to be very helpful and useful for kind of grounding the conversation in any coaching that may be taking place. Okay, then we have a few sections that the next section is standard part of the report, self-description, profile, and data. However, thereafter, we now get a new section called the self-perceptions summary. So I'm sorry, this is a little too small to read, but what this is really doing is taking that profile that we saw on the previous page and describing that profile in terms of really how that plays out, how that feels, how that looks, how that affects the individual. So for those of you who may be new to Human Synergistics tools, newly accredited, for example, in LSI, I find this text to be very helpful for those people to, again, really describe that profile, kind of interpret it in broad strokes for you. And again, this text is completely customized based on that profile. So it really is speaking to the unique patterns that we're seeing in the individual's report. So a little more text to understand really what are we looking at and to help understand. Then we provide you with actually much more. This is about 6 pages of content right after the self description profile and self-perceptions summary. We then have what we call a closer look content. So this is really, again, if you're familiar with the models, this is really taking this a step further. We're not, in this case, describing the self-description profile so much as describing how that self-description profile has an impact on the focal participant themselves, what this tells about themselves, what this predicts about how they, again, approach their work, interact with other people, and so on. So it's really making that link between the self-description and outcomes in our models. Very, very helpful text, refers to various different situations and contexts, and it's very helpful to understand these patterns, again, in terms of how they play out in day-to-day life. Okay, the next few sections are standard to the report, feedback profiles, description by others, and then we have our summary perception of this description. So again, this is about 1.5 pages of text in the report that is describing the feedback profile. Again, if we're new to human synergistics or find it difficult to explain what we're seeing in that profile, or we want to provide our participants with a little bit of customized text directly in the report, again, I find that to be very helpful to explain how that profile is playing out. Yeah, thank you. There's a question about the Acumen tool. Thank you for that, Mr. Botha. Thank you for joining. Yes, I will happily talk about the Acumen. I guess I can interject with that right now. So, LSI was the original instrument, again, developed by Human Synergistics, and the tool was used initially in clinical settings and research as intended, and then began to be used in other settings, as far as I'm aware, that were to some extent unintended, at least initially. And some of those settings were things like leadership coaching and development. And in the early 70s, there was a company in California called Acumen, and they were a leadership coaching and development organization and used Human Synergistics LSI very early on for leadership coaching. And I believe the story goes that they loved the LSI, but were looking for a version of that tool that was designed specifically for people in leadership roles. Again, the LSI itself is very, very broad in terms of its target audience. Really, it's designed for anyone. Whereas Acumen was looking for a version of that instrument that was focused specifically on leaders. So things like a norm that includes only people in leadership roles, and a report that references and describes a leadership setting in terms of how these behaviors play out and so on. So HS did collaborate with Acumen and developed the LWS, also known as the Acumen LWS, and we still have that tool today. So in some ways, if you're familiar with the LSI and the LWS from Human Synergistics history, in a way, we're sort of pulling some of the content from both of those tools together, really pulling a lot of content from LSI from LWS into the LSI report. But a few of these sections are actually truly unique and things that you would not receive also in the LWS. So, hope that gives some context. Thank you for the question. Very good. So again, here we're just having a page and a half of text describing that feedback profile. What are we seeing? What is that telling us in short terms? And then that's followed up by, again, a much further in-depth description of those patterns in the closer look section. So in this case, about 4 pages, but again, making that connection between the feedback profile and outcomes, how the patterns that we're seeing in that feedback are connecting to and influencing the performance of the leader in their role. So a lot of very supportive text to help understand, again, the context of these behaviors. And then we're going to shift back into content that you have seen previously. So, for example, item level feedback we've had for a number of years. Comparative profiles have always been a part of the report. Spread of opinion is new since 2014, as well as the summary grids. Of course, you get breakout profiles are an option in reports as well for a number of years. Satisfaction items have always been included, aspects of psychological well-being and outcomes. And of course, summary perceptions, measurements of more sort of work-related and other measures of effectiveness that we capture in LSI 2 have always been, of course, included in that instrument. And then finally, toward the very end here, we're getting another few sections of customized LSI plus text. So the first of these is referring to LSI 1. And again, all of this text, I don't know if I've pointed that out enough, all of this text in the LSI Plus is customized based on the focal participants profiles. So the profiles that we're seeing in the report. We talk about how this is done in detail in the accreditation process, but suffice to say at this point that the text that you're provided with in all of these new sections is customized based on the unique profile of the individual. Again, these suggestions for development, I think, are very, very helpful. If you're familiar with LSI, you know that you have suggestions for development already in our self-development guides, and especially our newly updated self-development guide. That's a very, very helpful resource. But I do find it to be very nice that we have, customized suggestions for development, again, based on the unique, in this case, self-description profile of the focal participant. So we have about 2 pages of these. I think in all you get about 15 or 20 different potential suggestions for development. Again, we're not intending people to do all of these things, but it gives you a variety of options, or the participant a variety of options to find things that they may be able to do, commit to begin the development process. So I think it's really helpful that we have a handful of them in there, or a few handfuls of those recommendations in there for you and the participant, the accredited practitioner, and the participant themselves, to have those at your fingertips and tangible. Thank you again for more questions. Love it. Any additional questions? No, I meant to mention this. So this is really lovely. All of the new content for the LSI Plus is really based on, looking at the profiles and generating text describing that profile, how that profile is playing out, and recommendations for it. So it's not based on any additional questions. So the LSI Plus is the same, survey length as the standard LSI. So that's, I think, a very, very nice thing. Is the LSI 1 only available in the Plus? No. So the Plus is really these additional text support sections, and they are available for LSI 1, self-description, and we can score it that way all by itself. We could do this alone for LSI 2, and in this case, what we're seeing in this report is really both. So we have all of the bases covered. You can have as much or as little of this really as you would like. So I've tried to include all of the sections in this report. We have the self-description, the summary of that, how that's playing out, consequences and recommendations, and you get the same sort of parallel of text for, again, both the self and the feedback profiles. All right, hopefully that helps. Thank you very much for the questions. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's, again, about 4 pages of suggestions for development based on the self-description profile. And then we have another 4 pages of suggestions for development based exclusively on the feedback profile. So again, if you're familiar with the tool, you'll understand why and that those 2 profiles can differ significantly. And so we have different suggestions for development based on really which profile we're focusing on. Again, if you're familiar with the instrument, you may understand why in certain contexts we would focus more, for example, on the self-description profile, while in other contexts we may put more emphasis on the feedback profiles. In any case, we have this very nice, I think, customized supportive text to not only describe both of those profiles, secondarily describe how they play out and are influencing the well-being and performance of that focal participant, all customized to their data. And finally, we're getting recommendations for development for both self and feedback profiles, again, customized to the individual. So I think that's tremendously helpful. The LSI report was always one of those reports that was quite data driven, and you had all of the text sort of separately in the self-development guide, but it took a little bit of back and forth to look at, well, where's my profile and what is that telling and what's primary and secondary and start to work through it. Where I really find that while this text doesn't describe obviously everything, it does a nice job of kind of opening the door, building a bridge, and helping people to kind of get the key messages and the key concepts that they need to understand in these profiles. And what is this really saying about me, and what consequence and effect does that really have? And again, moving forward, if I'd like some of these things to change or improve, what kinds of things might I be able to do differently? And it's all right there, again, customized to the individual's profile, right in your report. So I think this is a really exciting option. Again, at this point, it is an option. You can have LSI with the plus content. You can have the LSI as you have always experienced it historically without that text. So take it and leave it. And to be honest with you, we just launched this recently. So I think about 2 months ago, we started experimenting with the LSI Plus within our territory. That's gone very, very well. So we're happy now to really be offering that widely. We also have completed the translation process for German. So we should have complete German reports available very, very soon. So that will be very nice to use as well. At this time, we don't have any price difference between the standard LSI and the LSI Plus, because we really want people to try it, experience it. We'd like to get some feedback in terms of how helpful this really is. From the people that have used it thus far, I've received really very positive feedback. So I'd urge you, if you're accredited and have the opportunity to do an LSI, to please reach out and ask for the plus to be included. Moving forward, there may be, beginning in 2025, so next year, pretty soon, there may be a difference in price for the LSI plus. So you've got a few more months here to try to do a project and see how that's helpful. In any case, I think it's a valuable piece of support material for participants, and also, again, for accredited consultants to give you that bit of support, bit of context. And again, the fact that it's really customized to that individual's profile, I think makes things much more specific, not only supportive and contextual, but specific to that individual. All right. If you're interested, please reach out. Happy to help send a sample report to anyone who's accredited and interested, and of course to offer those kinds of reports to anyone who has an upcoming project. I think they're very, very helpful, and look forward to using them and hearing your feedback. That was my topic for today. I hope that was helpful. I hope it was interesting. Thank you, everyone who joined. Thank you, Philip, for the great questions. Always very nice. And again, if you have any questions about the LSI, perhaps interested in using it, curious about getting accredited in these great developmental tools, please feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.